for the new life. So then, putting away falsehood, let all of us speak the truth to our neighbors, for we are members of one another. Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. And do not make room for the devil. Thieves must give up stealing. Rather, let them labor and work honestly with their own hands, so as to have something to share with the needy. Let no evil talk come out of your mouths, but only what is useful for building up, as there is need, so that your words may be grace to those who hear. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with which you were marked with a seal for the day of redemption. Put away from you all bitterness and wrath and anger and wrangling and slander, together with all malice, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ has forgiven you. These are the words of God. Thanks be to God.
This summer we've been looking at the superheroes. And so if any of you glanced at the back of your bulletin this morning, you might have thought, I'm not sure this is going to qualify as a hero. You see that snarling face there. All right, that's the Incredible Hulk. And then, of course, our other little fellow there is Shrek. Both of them green, and both of them with an anger problem. Now, it's interesting because when we listen to Paul writing to us in the book of Ephesians, we hear him acknowledging the fact that all of us get angry. It happens. All of us get angry at some point or another. And so he says, when you get angry, don't sin. When you get angry, don't sin. Now it's interesting because if you enjoy the superhero movies and you watch the Hulk movies work very good. And I never read the Hulk comic books, so basically what I did was to watch the old television show. You remember the old television, that back in the 80s or something? And I would watch the old television show, and during the introduction of the television show, the alter ego, Bruce Banner, is saying to somebody who's chasing him all the time, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. Because he's the one that, when he does get angry, he turns into the Incredible Hulk. It was an accident, of course, in the storyline. Dr. Banner was trying to find a way to tap into the hidden human strength. Well, what that meant was he was tackling the adrenal glands in our body. And the adrenal glands then kick in adrenaline, which helps us get ready. So that when you and I get angry, when we get mad, those adrenaline glands kick in, and the adrenaline then converts sugar into energy. And when that happens, friends, you and I are ready. We're ready either to fight or to run. Now, of course, if you're in the Incredible Hulk, you always do the fighting, not the running part. Shrek is interesting, too. He also has a temper problem. That's why he's an ogre. And evidently, although we get a little confused as the movie goes on, that might be why nobody likes him. But both of these characters have anger issues. And both of these characters, of course, are based on the older story, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll was doing the same thing. He was trying to figure out how to strengthen human beings. And so there's an accident. Now when he gets angry, he turns into a strong creature too. And all of those stories are pointing out to us that when we get angry, sometimes our brains leave us. When we really get mad, sometimes our brains just exit the situation. There's no self-control. We do things we don't want to do. We say things we don't want to say. And when we do calm down, it can be a little on the embarrassing side. So that's where Paul starts when he's writing to the Ephesians. He says, okay, you're going to get angry. But when you get angry, don't sin. When you get angry, don't sin. Now it's very interesting because for however many seasons the television show The Incredible Hulk was on, I never saw the Hulk actually kill anybody. And he had absolute accurate radar as to who the bad guys were and who the good guys were. Never heard a good guy was always beating up the bad guys. And I don't know how he managed to tell the difference if he was in this rage that was out of control. But then it also may have been that the writers of the stories understood what Paul was saying to us. Get angry, but don't sin. Yesterday afternoon, we married off Cassandra Pittman. And it was so much fun to get to see your former youth director. And Shay was giving a sermon to the couple. He was letting the rest of us listen in, but basically he was preaching to that couple. And he was reminding them that they're not always going to feel like they do on their wedding day. When I do premarital counseling, I always ask the couples, I say, tell me how you fight. And don't tell me that you don't fight, because then you're going to be lying to me and I won't do your wedding. But tell me how you fight, because all married couples fight. It just happens. They fight in different ways, of course. Some married couples get nose to nose and scream at each other. Some married couples go stomping off in opposite directions. Some married couples, one will get angry and the other will retain their cool, and they'll go hide in a room and everybody cools them. There are all kinds of styles of fighting. And everybody fights. And so what I say to the couples are, tell me how you fight. Now, there are some people who evidently fight by throwing things, and that usually causes destruction. And then somebody has to clean up the mess, which then makes them angry all over again. So I would say that is not an appropriate way to express anger. But there are appropriate ways to express anger. So Paul says, all right, you're going to get angry, but don't sin. And then he gives the next piece of advice. When you get angry, don't let the sun go down on your anger. One of the things that I always tell premarital counseling is I will say to them, okay, when you fight, try not to do it after the sun goes down. You and I are creatures of the light. We stand upright so that we can see as far away as possible. Our eyes are centered together and they work together. They're sending separate images to the brain, but the brain puts them into one so that you and I are operating with just one image that's coming in from two eyes cooperating. And the eyes have ways of contracting or expanding the pupils so that we get the right amount of light. We're supposed to see. We are creatures of light. And even though we've now invented artificial light, our bodies still understand when the sun goes down, and we don't function as well. We don't, friends. You can have all the lights on in the house that you want to, but when the sun goes down, your body knows it, and you will not be functioning as well. And that includes when you get angry. When you get angry after dark, it's going to be worse. I guarantee it. Paul knew that. When you get angry, don't let the sun go down on your anger. Because when the sun goes down on your anger, then you go to bed and you wake up the next morning and it's really funny what a good night's sleep is for anger. It tends to drain anger right on out. And you're going, okay, now I can't remember what I got mad about in the first place. Get angry, but do not sin. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. And then Paul goes traipsing off to try and set a standard that the rest of us are going, I don't think so, because he says, put away rage and anger. And you're going, It's always a good goal, of course. We do not want to turn into green monsters. Thank you very much. But the reality is that anger has a purpose in our lives. We were created with anger on purpose. Most of you know by now that Margaret Lyles died on Wednesday of this week. And I had a funeral on Friday as well, the husband of one of my friends in the Rotary Club that I attend. And so this week I met with two families who have experienced death. And I try to always remind families who are going through a time of grief that in grief there are 5 stages. 5 stages of grief. Everybody goes through it. Nobody's exempt. Now, we may spend different amounts of time in the different stages, and we may do them in different orders. But there are always 5 stages of grief. Denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. And even at the point when we get to acceptance, an anniversary or a birthday or something else like that can trigger one of those earlier stages, and we may revisit it. It's not even limited to death. The stages of grief come into play when there's a bad medical diagnosis, when somebody's lost a job, if there's been a divorce, if the house burned down, or if the house got robbed. All of those will trigger the stages of grief. And what I try to tell the families who are going through these things is that those stages are so normal that somebody calculated them. There's nothing wrong with you when you go through those stages of grief, even when you go through the stage of anger. Anger and depression are mirror images of each other. Anger kicks the adrenaline glands, and that gets us moving. And if nothing else, it gets us moving into the kitchen, where there's something to eat, because you haven't been eating. Or get you out to the grocery store if there's nothing in the kitchen, or whatever it's going to take. Depression is the mirror image, because depression is what keeps you in bed. You don't want to get up. And there are people who move through those stages of grief, and they got to do something, they're always on motion, and the body finally says, you know what, you're tired. Go to bed and don't get up. Because when we're going through grief, you've got to have both rest and you've got to have something to eat. And depression and anger mirror each other. So that when anger comes, especially within one of the stages of grief, it's perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with that. The trick is like Paul says, get angry but don't sin. Try not to kick the dog. The dog didn't do anything, although dogs are very forgiving most of the time. If you yell at your spouse, you're probably going to have to apologize at some point. But there again, that's the person who is most likely to stick with you. I wouldn't advise yelling at the boss. Sometimes that can not go well. Be angry, but don't sin. There are appropriate ways to express anger. There are appropriate things to do with anger. And God has given us anger for a reason. Sometimes it's to get up and get moving. To be ready to fight or to flee. It's perfectly natural. There's nothing wrong with that. And then I think there's another kind of anger as well. And for lack of a better term, I would say that that's what we would call righteous anger. Now, it always amused me when I was watching The Incredible Hulk on television, because the man who played the alter ego, Bill Bixby, and then there was another man, Lou Ferrigno, who played the Hulk, and they were very different sizes. But even at the age I was watching it, I noticed the special effects that Bruce Banner's pants always fit the Incredible Hulk. Which makes 0 sense. Although, what do I know? Maybe Bruce Banner finally got to the point and started wearing stretchy pants, so he wouldn't be embarrassed when he turned into the Hulk. But the Hulk always zeroed in on the bad guys. Always zeroed in on the problems. And more times than not, it ended up that the Hulk would be protecting someone who was weak, someone who was caught by the system, someone who was suffering injustice. And Shrek had an anger problem. And he said, well, it's different when they always come at you with a pitchfork. People didn't like Shrek because he was different than they are. And that's an injustice too. And sometimes when we see the injustice that goes on in our world, there is such a thing as righteous anger. An anger that says, this is not right. This has got to be fixed. Somebody's got to do something. And anger then is like the Incredible Hulk. It turns us into somebody who's going to do something about it. And that kind of anger is appropriate to the people of God. That's the kind of anger that we actually make a decision about. I am going to be angry about hunger. I am going to be angry about injustice. I am going to be angry about family violence. I am going to be angry about whatever it is that's not right with our world. That makes me angry, and I'm going to do something about it. And I think Paul would keep saying, fine, get angry, but don't sin. In fixing the problem, don't make another problem worse. Get angry, but don't sin. Go after those problems in the world, just don't make new problems. So that righteous anger is appropriate to the people of God. And then Paul's advice still holds. That's fine. You can be angry in the daylight. But when nighttime comes, you need some rest. And so the prayer needs to be something to the effect, into your hands, O God, I commit this injustice. I'll get angry about it in the morning when I get up and start working on it again. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. When Paul says to let go of your rage, that's when you get mad at somebody and it was not appropriate. But when you and I use anger, it can be righteous anger. It can be the anger that the world is not the way God created it to be. And that anger gives us the energy to do something about it. Just try not to turn into a green monster, please. Be angry, but do not sin. And don't let the sun go down on your anger. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.